Hey Mabel, I am doing a little talk about giving effective feedback. So, why give effective feedback? Well, the lowest category in our recent Culture Amp survey was feedback and recognition. Only 50% favorable, which is pretty poor. Within that, I receive appropriate recognition. I get recognized for my work appropriately. And it's clear when I'm doing something well or not doing well. So feedback is really important. Everyone's saying that feedback's really important. That came through loud and clear. But it's still hard to do, right? It's a little bit scary putting yourself out there, and people get nervous. Am I going to say something inappropriate, or is it going to get someone feeling really defensive? Or so I'd really encourage you to give feedback, because it helps people be more productive. It helps them feel valued. They understand their connection to the purpose and what they're working on. And it helps them develop their skills so they can learn from other people's perspectives, which is really important. So please do take that risk. But I think if you do it well, and that's what this talk is about, then it's really not a risk. So, first of all, when to actually give it? What's the right time? So, in a timely manner. Don't give it feedback on something that happened 12 months ago and no one can remember. That's not particularly useful. Give it regularly. So don't wait once a year to give it and just bundle all your feedback in together. Try and give it quite regularly through the year. And then, when the other person's expecting it, or ideally when they ask, and all of us should be asking for feedback after a session. Say, hey, can I get some feedback on that? Or what do you think I did well then? But when the other person's expecting it, it doesn't mean that they have to ask, or that you have to tell them a week in advance, or you have to give them time to prepare. It just means that you actually specifically say that this is a piece of feedback. So one great way of giving that notification, but also getting a little bit of buy-in and making sure the person is ready, is just to ask them and say something like, can I share some feedback on that meeting? Or I've got a couple of thoughts on your deliverable last week. What do you think? And this way, people can do two things. One, prepare themselves for the feedback, so they understand it's not just some vague, wafty comments. It's actually intended for genuine feedback. And two, by making it a question, it gives the person a little bit of autonomy. They can actually opt in. They might say, oh, look, I know I did a terrible job. I just, I really can't deal with this right now. Or they might say, yeah, actually, I would be keen to hear your perspective on that. So once they've opted in, they're ready, they're open, it's a good time to give the feedback. But we're trying to make this opportunity for you as well by opening the Flare HR 360 feedback tool this Friday. And that'll give you an opportunity to just sit and think and reflect and leave leave great feedback on your colleagues and peers and managers even. So I'd really encourage everyone to take that opportunity for at least a couple of people, particularly on your squad. So how do you give effective feedback? So the framework I like to use is the Situation Behaviour Impact framework. It's a very common, one of the most common frameworks, SBI acronym, and it's fairly straightforward with how it works. So, and it's trying to prevent really vague, generic statements that people can get really defensive about. So by being really specific and taking the time to talk about the exact behavior and the impact, you can avoid making broad, generic statements that make people feel really defensive, because there's a lot of vagueness to it, there's a lot of subjectivity to it, and they're just not sure what to do with it, and so they just get defensive because there's a lot of kind of social ambiguity. So it's better to be quite specific. And so the three parts are: situation, describe the very specific situation in which the behavior took place; behavior, actually name the behavior and the behavior you want to address quite specifically, again; and then impact. So this is the impact you had on you or someone else, but it has to be quite direct. It can't be, look, I felt like they looked a bit confused after this meeting and maybe you didn't do a good job. Like it has to be, something that you saw yourself or felt yourself or directly heard from someone else. Again, to avoid that vagueness and to stop people feeling kind of defensive or like that it's quite subjective interpretation. So let me try and illustrate this with some specific examples. So I have 3 examples. First one. The PM is not setting a clear direction for the squad. So this could be, for example, you're writing a 360 review on a PM for your squad. So it's much better to structure it in terms of the SBI framework and the examples broken out here. So last Friday, you didn't deliver the roadmap as promised. That's the situation, right? Quite clear when it was, what the deliverable was. Behaviour. When I asked for a new date to see the roadmap, you told me you'd forgotten and didn't think it was important. So in this case, I think it's important that the behaviour is not so much the delivery, it's more the dismissal part, that you'd forgotten and that you said, you didn't think it was important. Then the impact. This made me feel frustrated and took away my autonomy because I need that roadmap to decide which tickets to prioritize. So I'm going into a sprint, I'm not sure what to do because I'm sitting kind of waiting for you and then it means I have to wait for you to stack rank my tickets. So then as an action as well, which is a bit of a bonus statement at the end, you say, look, in order for me to feel that autonomy that I'm desiring, I'd also like to be involved in actually deciding the roadmap at the start of the quarter, just to give me that longer term view and really get that sense of autonomy that I'm looking for. So you're kind of taking it the next step too. It's not just about, saying to them, I want you to deliver the roadmap on time. It's actually a little bit more proactive. How can I help you? I'd like to be really involved because this autonomy and this planning is really important to me. So that's the first example. Second example. Now, the first example was a negative one, but this feedback mechanism applies to both positive and negative. And it's really important to give really clear positive feedback as well. So as an example, that report you built looks great. Well done. So that's nice, but what exactly was well done? Like what did you hear? What exactly did I do? What should I do again? Like what was your interpretation of it? Could be quite unclear. And then you start making assumptions and you can go off in a different direction. So to put it in the situation behaviour impact format. The report you built for the compliance team last week, so very specific, which report, when was it? Behaviour was a really great use of automation and an example of making teams self-service in Salesforce. So, the behaviour that you put in was automation and you actually changed the behaviour of another team in line with kind of the vision of making them self-service. And then finally, the impact. What was so great about this? The compliance team shared that this report used to take them a week to produce and had them getting up at 4 a.m. every day, and now it's done, it's automated, so they don't have to do any of this time. So that's really, how great does that feel, right? It's not just a well done pat on the back, it's actually, hey, I saved my colleagues, a week worth of time, and that's really quite powerful, and my impact is quite strong there, and I should be proud of what I did. And then an action off the back of that. So, if you really liked this behavior and wanted to encourage it, what's the action that would see this behavior kind of re-engaged? So an example could be, it would be great to check in with compliance next week to see what other opportunities for automation they have. So, maybe establish a bit of a regular cadence. Maybe there's some opportunity here to kind of replay this behavior and get the benefits again and again. Cool. Last example. So, I don't think you're being proactive enough with your tickets. So this is maybe a bit more of an engineering focused one. Again, situation. When working on the API for Project Rock, whatever that project was, behavior, you didn't update Jira to tell anyone when it was finished. So you punched out your ticket, but you never updated the tool. You just moved on to the next thing. And the behavior was you didn't update it. The impact was this meant I lost 2 days of productivity, and I felt really embarrassed to chase you for an update, right? So I'm sitting around waiting for your ticket to be done. It was a dependency for me. I was blocked. And then I have this awkward 2-day period, and I was quite embarrassed. I didn't know how to ask you, and I ended up wasting a bunch of time. So that's the quite clear impact. And then in terms of action, it's actually nicer. You don't have to specify an action. And in some ways, it's better to actually ask a bit more of a self-reflective question. And in this case, is there another way for us to communicate more frequently during a sprint? So if the real behavioral issue was this communication and update, and I felt embarrassed, is there a better forum where I don't have to feel embarrassed and I can ask these questions, without feeling like I'm chasing? And that's a nice open-ended question that helps them self-reflect and take ownership of the issue and solve it going forward. So that's giving effective feedback. I hope you found this useful.